Usually, one of the big ones is that we're actually picking up on other people's points of view and other people's judgments of the way something should be without even realizing it. Is one of the things I notice also with the people that are in access, the smile is genuine. It comes from their being. And once again, I did so many things, and I know so many people now, where they do this smile where they're like, I'm happy. And I'm like, it doesn't feel happy. And it's so interesting because you would think being you would be the easiest thing to choose. And yet it seems to be one of the most challenging. And most of us don't even really know what's true for us. Like we have this idea, I'm from my country and there are other countries that are separate. We're all citizens of the earth. This planet is our home for all of us. And what is it going to take for us to recognize that and stop believing that separation is real based on nationality, based on color, based on sex, based on religion, based on any of those things? Those are all choices different people make. Okay, cool. Now, how do we? I think for me, I would just like everybody to recognize that them truly being them is the gift, the change, and the possibility this world requires. And it's not nearly as difficult as we're told it is, not nearly as difficult as you think. And also you choosing to be that, which starts to embrace what's true for you and what's joyful for you, will start to acknowledge that other people can choose what's true for them. We'll start to create a space where they can choose what's joyful for them. And let us be the voice, and let us be the energy, and let us be the request that creates a sustainable living earth that includes all of us.
So can you explain to us what is access consciousness?
Well, it's the weirdest thing you'll ever find, but the original meaning of weird was of spirit, fate, or destiny. So I like that part. But access basically is a set of tools, techniques, and information that allow you to change any area of your life you want to change. And one of the things that we recognized a long time ago is the only time you create a difficulty in your life is when you function from unconsciousness, or when you go against your knowing and don't follow your awareness. And so what access is about is actually getting us to that place where we can follow the consciousness that we naturally are, so things work in our lives, and so we can change the things that don't work.
Mm-hmm. This is really interesting. I remember that in 2015, I started to watch some videos and read about what is access consciousness and see like that, but I said, this is so weird, no? Yes, and it took me 4 years. And then when I did the bars, it was amazing.
Uh-huh. Yes, and that's the thing, is until you experience it, you can hear about it, you can hear some of the tools and you go, what? But until you experience it, until you get that sense of what it really gives you, it can seem like, what? Yeah, I know it kind of works, but what? And then you experience it and you're like, oh, I see. It's like when your friends are all talking about some really great movie that you haven't seen and you're like, yeah. And then you go watch it and you get the experience of it and you're like, oh, now I see what everybody's talking about.
Yeah. Can you explain to us what the bars are?
Yeah, absolutely. The bars are 32 points on the head. And what happens to get your bars on, you just lie down on a table, or you could sit in a chair, and somebody just puts their hands on your head really lightly in different places, and takes about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. And what they are is we found these energy, we call them the bars because they look kind of like energy bars that go through the head. And what they do is they release the thoughts, feelings, emotions, judgments, lies, secrets, all the stuff that we've been holding on to that makes our life a challenge, and they let those go. And so, and it's not a talk therapy, that part of access is not about talking at all. It's actually where somebody can learn to receive for the first time in their lives sometimes. And it really is about receiving, having somebody gift to you, but also what it creates is we've done studies and we found that it changes your brain waves, and the part of the brain waves that it changes are that which increases your sense of connection to the universe, that which increases your creativity, the part of the brain waves that get you to that relaxed sort of meditative state where you feel like you're at one with everything. And also we did a study on anxiety, stress, and depression and found that it reduces it 85% from one session. And so what it does is truly phenomenal. And, you know, and people always ask, how does it work? I'm like, well, we know what it does. How does it work? Somebody puts their hands on your head. Yeah, but how does it work? It's like, well, do you know how a jet engine works? No, but you'll fly in a plane and it helps your life a lot. You know, it's the same thing. It's like, I don't know if I could tell anybody how. I've got a sense that what it does is, you know, it's like even Einstein said, every molecule in the universe has consciousness. And my sense is, you know, the whole universe world around us is looking to contribute to us to get us out of the unconsciousness we've been functioning. And this is one of those gifts.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Are we energy?
Yes, definitely. And the thing is, what I like to tell people is we're energetic beings, and nobody explains this to us in a practical way. You know, I'm grateful for many of the conversations that are being had now, because people are actually speaking about certain aspects of this from a practical way. Because for me, it's got to be practical. I did so many metaphysical things and so many other things that were like, ooh, energy, you were energy, you should know it. And nothing ever changed, you know? So this is a practical awareness. Like people who, like, for example, if you've ever been in a relationship and you knew something had occurred and your partner was upset before and you weren't even around them, and you call them and you're like, hey, is everything okay? I've just got this weird vibe. Well, that's the way we are with everybody around us. And if we would allow ourselves to recognize our awareness of energy and that we are energetic beings, we could act in the world or interact in the world energetically. And what would happen is, like, a really simple example is one really practical access tool. And by the way, must be part Italian because I talk with my hands. So I apologize. It's like, you know, it's like a bunch of rabbits jumping around. A really practical access tool is what's true makes you lighter. A lie makes you heavier. What happens is if you think about doing something, if you think about moving, if you think about getting a job, you want to be real in touch with, okay, does this make me lighter or does it make me heavier? Because what's light is what's true for you. But also, if we start to choose the things that create lightness when we think about them, what would start to happen is our entire lives would get lighter and lighter and lighter. And if you look at the world right now, most people are choosing things that don't make them light. And then they're trying to somehow change it so that it's not wrong for them. And so this is where a lot of the difficulties in life come. If we recognize we're energetic beings, what that also gives us is the ability to start shifting the things in our life, changing the energy of it. But also, if we recognize that all of our desires are energetic, it's like, why would you like a nicer home? Well, because of the energy you have when you live there. You know, why would you like a different job? Because of the energy that you're experiencing at your job. So these are actually really practical things, and we can use that as a way of getting the sense of what we would like to have energetically, and then we can have something to follow to get there. And also, the other last thing I want to say is energy is so extremely practical. It's like anybody who is successful in business or has created their own business that is working follows the energy. They call it their gut feeling because energy has been such a misused word for so long. But when they follow their gut feeling, things work. Well, that's an awareness of energy. And if we can call it what it is, then we can expand upon it. And we can also start learning from those who have this sense of energy, how we can navigate our lives, but also how we can change the roadblocks in our lives, because those are all energetic too.
What happens when we are blocked?
All kinds of things. Usually, one of the big ones is that we're actually picking up on other people's points of view and other people's judgments of the way something should be without even realizing it. One of the other, and I know you're big on tools, you know, like let's give people things that they can use. And so am I, because I in everything I had done before Access, we didn't have, there weren't the tools to change the things I wanted to change. And when I found Access, I was like, oh my gosh, there's an entire toolbox here. We have over 8,000 tools that people can use to change things, and they're really practical. So when you talk about being blocked, one of the tools that I need a bit of an explanation here. One of the things that we found is that 98% of the stuff that goes through your head on a daily basis is not yours. You're picking it up from other people. You're like a big psychic radio receiver. And this is another, awareness of that energy thing. Like if you're around sad people, you ever notice how you start to get sad too? It's like that, but we do it with everybody. And so we have a tool in Access where we suggest, we also have a free app. It's only in English right now. It's in the process of getting translated. And it's called the Access Consciousness Who Does This Belong To app, okay? And what we suggest that you do is ask, who does this belong to every thought, feeling, emotion, judgment, sadness, or heaviness that you have for 3 days. And if it lightens up at all, it's not yours. You're picking it up from somebody else around you. And if you'll do that consistently for 3 days, at the end of 3 days, you walk around like you're in a walking, talking meditation. And you break the machine that makes you think that everything you're aware of is yours. Because, there's two things. Like if you look and go, okay, so what's the difference between I'm sad, which is one thing, and I perceive sadness? With the I'm sad, you owned it now. With I perceive sadness, it's like, oh, there it is. It's out there, but I'm aware of it. And so what you start to become aware of is that you're really aware of other people's sadness, other people's stuck, other people's blockages. And so when we're stuck, it's primarily that we're trying to live a life or create from a way that is not big enough for us, or it doesn't really have to do with us. Like we're trying to, we pick up all kinds of things when we're growing up about the right way to be, the right way to create, all of this sort of stuff. And so we tend to get in a constant state of judgment of us, but 98% of what we think we're supposed to do doesn't really work for us. And so the stuckness primarily is trying to live a life that doesn't work for us and trying to play the game, if you will, according to other people's rules.
Wow, that's wonderful. What took me my attention lately was I have a friend in Ecuador. Her name is Erica Scotti. She sent you hi.
Hi, Erica.
And she started to post saying about access consciousness and other person too. And I started to see the faces of everybody. The smile is so authentic. The faces have another expression that I haven't seen for a while.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you noticed it. And that, that what a gift. And that is one of the things I notice also with the people that are in Access, the smile is genuine. It comes from their being. And I did so many things, and I know so many people now, where they do this smile where they're like, I'm happy. And I'm like, it doesn't feel happy, but this is just, you smile because you are genuinely happy and grateful for the world. And also the wonderful thing about Access classes is that you're surrounded by people that are going there too, that actually desire something different, and they desire to do something different other than normal. It's kind of like everybody else in the world is trying to fit in, and we're going, hey, you know what? We realize we don't fit in, but let's have a good time not fitting in. And let's invite people that don't feel normal to come and play. Because if you feel normal, and it's working for you, that's great. I think you should have it, and that's awesome. There's just a whole slew of misfits in the world that feel like normal doesn't work for them very well, but they've never found something that's different enough to match their weird personality.
That is perfect, because in your book, oh my gosh.
Being you, changing the world.
Changing the world. You also said about that, to be authentic, to be yourself. But this is really difficult sometimes, no?
Oh, in the world we live in, it's one of the most challenging things to choose. And it's so interesting because you would think being you would be the easiest thing to choose. And yet it seems to be one of the most challenging. And most of us don't even really know what's true for us. We learned as young kids to try to do all the right stuff. So it's like we've tried to set our life on autopilot, press the red button and let whatever we've had as our points of view before control our life as though it works. And what's funny is, most people get to a certain point where they're like, this doesn't work. I thought it worked. I wanted to pretend it doesn't work. This autopilot thing is not serving me,
Yes.
So this is about getting off the autopilot.
Wow, I love this. I really love that. And also, you talk about possibility, no? Because this is
Yes.
something that I use always to say, everything is possible. But
Yeah.
sometimes, sometimes I am waiting for this
Oh,
possibility.
I love that. That is so accurately put. You're like, I know everything is possible, but seriously, when's it going to show up? Well, that's one of the beautiful things about Access for me is we really do not only talk about possibilities, but we show people how to actualize them. And actualize is having it actually show up. And so but depending on each situation with each person, it may be a different way of going about it. But one of the things that can really help is if you start asking, there's a couple questions that you want to ask sort of continuously if you can. One is, what else is possible here? Another one is, what is it going to take to change this? And actually, let me modify the first question. What else is possible here that I've never considered before? Because whenever you ask a question always opens up a doorway of possibilities. An answer always closes them. Or with an answer or a judgment or a conclusion or a decision, we're stuck with that answer, that judgment, that decision or conclusion, and nothing else can come into our awareness about what else might be possible. And what's funny is, from the time we were little kids, we were taught to get the right answer in school, in home, so we have this weird idea that there's some right answer out there if we can just get the perfect formula. But, I know people who tried for 85 years to get the perfect formula, and then they died. And about 3 days before they died, they went, wait a minute, I did it all wrong. I should have just lived as me, And so it's an interesting thing. So if we ask, what else is possible that I've never considered? Also, if we ask, how does it get any better than this? And anybody who knows anybody in Access has heard them ask this question. And it can get annoying sometimes because they ask it a lot. But the reason you ask the question is to open up, how does it get any better? You can ask it when something good happens or when something bad happens. How does it get any better than this? Makes a bad situation better, makes a good situation even better. Because what most people do when something good happens is they go, yay, thanks. And then they stop the energy. And so what happens is, if you're willing to ask, how does it get even better? How does it get any better than this? You start to open that space where it can get better and better and better. And then one other question that could be really helpful is, what's right about me I'm not getting? Because we tend to go around with a lot of wrongness of us. And unfortunately, we can change it, but we really need to ask, what's right about me I'm not getting? And remember, whenever you ask a question, you open up possibilities. An answer and a judgment always shuts them down. And we don't realize how many answers and how many conclusions and how many judgments we do on a daily basis, both of ourselves and other people. And we don't realize how many we're picking up from other people around us, because we can feel it, we can perceive it, we think it must be ours because it feels like it's in our head. Well, it's not in your head, it's out there, but your head picks up on what's in their head. So we need to do something different. And that's where the other tool, the who does this belong to, comes in.
Yes, and because we do the question, no? But after we do the question, then we start to thinking the answer.
Yep.
Something that we have to control.
Exactly.
The book, no, that we have to wait for the answer, not thinking what answer will be.
So here's a couple things. Is what we tend to do, like you said, we tend to we tend to ask the question, and then we start looking for answers. Is this the answer? Is this the answer? How does it get any better than this? That. Well, no, none of that is necessarily the answer. We need to recognize that the universe actually has infinite awareness of possibilities. And what we're looking to do is open up possibilities. And so rather than looking for the answer, be patient and allow the answer to show up for you, and recognize that most of us have been taught that we need to control our lives in order to make them work, and we need to control ourselves, and we need to control our impulses, and we need to control our urges, and we need to do control of everything. But what that form of control is, what it does, it keeps your life like the size of a postage stamp, because the only thing you're willing to have in your life is something you are directly in charge of. And what we found in Access is, as you start to allow yourself to go beyond the need to control every aspect of everything, that's when the receiving occurs. Because if you're saying, no, I've got to control it, I've got to be the one in charge, well, when does the universe and the consciousness that's all around us, when does that get to contribute to you? It doesn't. And so in that, what happens if we let consciousness contribute? And I say consciousness because, well, we do access consciousness. Our definition of consciousness is where everything exists. So it's that space where everything and everyone exists, and no one and nothing is judged. Whew, wouldn't that be a wonderful world to live in? And so all of that space where, and there's consciousness all around us, every plant, every animal, every tree, the chair you're sitting in. It's like, and once again, Einstein told us every molecule has consciousness. But if we're trying to control everything, we shut it out and we go, no, I'm responsible for it all. Well, responsibility is the ability to respond. You're not responsible for it all, but you're also, most of us are not receiving nearly as much as we could that would allow it to be a lot easier. So we have this idea that we need to do it all. And we have ways of changing all of this in Access actually really quickly. One of the things I really love about Access is how fast the change is. Because, I've worked on things in other modalities for years that never changed. And I come to Access, and sometimes in one conversation they change. But once again, it's because we have the tools and the way of going about changing the past, the way of this embracing of possibilities, because we, as the beings we are, should have way more possibilities than we see show up.
And we think we are separated from each other. But for me, this is the biggest lie, because what I see is that we are all one, no?
Absolutely. I think it's vital. And we need to recognize that we're not, it's like we have this idea, I'm from my country and there are other countries that are separate. We're all citizens of the earth. This planet is our home for all of us. And what is it going to take for us to recognize that and stop believing that separation is real based on nationality, based on color, based on sex, based on religion, based on any of those things? Those are all choices different people make. Okay, cool. Now, how do we come together as a worldwide citizenship and citizenry that has the capacity to recognize this is our home, let's take care of our home, let us honor our brothers and our sisters, and let us contribute to them everything that will make their lives great. And if we did, we'd see a different world. And the other thing to recognize is every animal, every tree, every plant has consciousness. Every molecule truly has consciousness. But the other thing about that is, if you look at the two-leggeds walking around on the planet, they choose against their consciousness. Like they go against their knowing continuously. They go against what's light. We don't see animals doing that. It's like if wolves go against their knowing, they die. If gazelles go against their knowing, they die. It's like the wolf doesn't go, oh, there are gazelles over there. No, I'm going to go over here instead and spend 6 months doing something that I hate. It's like, that's not the way that the rest of the world functions. It's only we humanoid type people that do that sort of thing. And okay, fine, but we have a different choice.
Yes, that is true. I was talking with Desiree, and when she was doing the bar, and what comes to my mind was that about the fear. So the question is, what is this fear and what is possible?
Well, do you want me to go into the weird explanation of it that will actually change it, or the surface explanation that will sound normal to your listeners?
I don't want nothing normal.
Then here we go. Well, if we're bringing in fear, we also need to bring in the way to clear it. See, because for me, it's one thing to talk about it, and because I've been in so many workshops where we talked about things and they told me what it was, but they never gave me a way to change it. And then I had to think about it continuously, whether I was doing this or not. And then I went into judgment of me, and then it never changed. It only got worse because I was now doing it and judging myself for doing it. So for me, when I talk about something, it's also time to change it. So let me tell you the three things that fear is. And then, so fear is, number one, fear is a part of something called a distractor implant. A distractor implant is something that's designed to distract you by making you run around in circles up here rather than getting beneath it and being able to create in the way that you actually can. And fear, and an implanted point of view is something that you adopt at some point, some way, somehow. And, you know, I have said for a very long time, everything I thought was true in life has turned out to be a lie or an implanted point of view. Now, where do we get these implants? I don't have an answer for that. I just know that a lot of the things that sit in your world for a long time seem to act like implants, and an implant creates a false version of reality that appears more real than what is truly real. Okay, so first is fear is a distractor implant. Now, if you have access to the Access Consciousness clearing statement, which we need to do now too, you can change the distractor implants. And so, and we have a we have a book that we wrote on the distractor implants, because one of the things that we found is we could change these things. And so the distractor implants are anger, rage, fury, and hate. Because if you've ever tried to handle somebody who's in anger or hatred, it's almost impossible. The reason it's not possible is because it's actually not real, in that it's an implanted point of view. It's a distractor implant. So anger, rage, fear, and hate, blame, shame, regret, and guilt. If you, once again, I mean, and especially in Latin America, the blame, shame, regret, and guilt, oh my goodness, it's like a national, it's like an international pastime. You know what I mean? And nobody knows how to get rid of it, but everybody has it. It's like telenovela. Oh, Dios mío, ¿qué pasa? I'm so bad. I'm so bad, you know? And it's like, you're like, okay, honey, calm down a little bit. Get your bars run, you know? And so anger, rage, fear, and hate, blame, shame, regret, and guilt are all distractor implants. And we could change them if we were willing to, by when they come up. Oh, and fear and doubt also. There's a whole bunch of other ones, but let's not go into that right now. So if we look at anger, rage, fear, and hate, blame, shame, regret, and guilt, fear and doubt, they're all these implanted points of view. Well, what do you do to change an implanted point of view? For that, you need to use one of actually the biggest tools of Access Consciousness, which is the clearing statement. And the clearing statement is, it's a way of going back to wherever you created a limited point of view and dissolving it. And it's one of the biggest things that we use all the time, but it's also one of the weirdest sounding. So people are like, are you doing voodoo? And I'm like, yes, of the best kind. No, it's not voodoo. It's actually consciousness in motion. The clearing statement is actually short for about 6 pages of material. And so it's one of the tools that Access has that nothing else has, that allows us to, instead of visualizing to go back to where it started or feeling it or whatever, we ask to destroy and uncreate the limitation. And then if the person is willing to, then we run the clearing statement and it starts to dissolve from the point where it got created. It's like science, you know, the wall looks solid in the room that we're in, but science tells us it's 99.999% space. Well, what if it's the same thing with the limitations in our lives? What if there's this, we've just created them as solid, and what if there's this space where we could twist it and just walk right through it and never have it limit us again? So in order to clear fear, doubt, anger, rage, fury, hate, blame, shame, regret, and guilt, anytime they come up, you just go, okay, so all of those distractor implants I now destroy and uncreate. And then you run the clearing statement or the short form of the clearing statement. The short form of it is POC and POD, POC and POD. POC stands for going back to the point of creation of wherever you created a limitation, or the point of destruction of wherever you destroyed something that was not limited and put limitation in place. So you can go POC and POD all that. It still works because it's been done so many billions of times around the planet at this point. Or you can run the entire thing. If you're somebody like me who is very, shall we say, particular, I don't know if, like anal retentive translates, very well. But for me, I say the whole thing, which is right and wrong, good and bad, POC and POD, all 9, shorts, boys, and beyonds. And what that does is the right and wrong, good and bad are the judgments of it. POC and POD we just talked about. The all 9 stands for 9 layers of this thing that I don't even remember, and I was part of finding them. Shorts is your punishments, rewards, the meaningful, the meaningless, all the stuff, all the points of view about it. Boys is these things called, boys are these things that look like an onion, and they just make sure that it keeps reappearing no matter how much change you try to do. So we eliminate that. It's an energetic structure. And beyond is that energy you get in your gut, like when you get a bill that's 10 times more than it should be. Well, we let that go too. That's called a beyond. There's much more explanation, on the clearingstatement.com website, but I just wanted people to have just a tiny bit. So if you're willing to actually start using this thing, you can do it for anything that comes up. Like, let's say you're in fear. You go, okay, everything Dain said in POC and POD. And I've had people who have done that where it literally changed. So fear, first distractor implant. The second thing about fear is fear and excitement feel exactly the same way. And it's our point of view about it that determines what we decide it is. So like Gary tells this story about being a little kid. He was going to go on the Ferris wheel, and he was pulling on his mom's skirt, so excited. He was ready to go. He was just so excited. And she looked down and said, "Now, don't be afraid, dear." For his entire life, he misidentified that excited energy as afraid. And so every time, he was excited about something, he's like, "Oh my God, I'm so afraid of this," until he got this information. And this is what we see with a lot of people. And so we'll have somebody in class go, "I'm so afraid of my new job." And I'm like, "Are you afraid or excited?" And they go, "Oh, I'm excited." Oops. Okay. So we POC and POD the distractor implants because that's part of where fear gets turned, or excitement gets turned into fear. Then when you can have the excitement and enthusiasm for it, then that's an energy that propels you forward. So, and the last thing is, it is somebody else's fear, either in present time or that one of the ways that we work, we talked about being an energetic being. When we're little kids, we come in and we're like, "Whoa, how do they do it here? What a weird place," and people are doing all their weird lives and all that sort of stuff. But what we do is we are so close to our parents energetically and physically that what we do is we figure out how they do reality by seeing how they interact with people and how they interact with situations. So for example, like I grew up, and my mom, and by the way, I'm glad you asked about fear, and I apologize for the long explanation, but I really hope it helps people, because I used to shiver in fear 19 years ago. Before Access, I was starting my second practice in Santa Barbara, and the only thing I could think to do, because I didn't know anybody or anything there, the only thing I could think to do was to pick up the phone and call people, call other practitioners, and see if I could meet with them. And I was so afraid. I would pick up the phone and I would start shaking before I could even dial the number. And I was literally shaking. And then I was like, oh, and I was trying all my tools before Access that I didn't have. Nobody told me how to get rid of fear. And then I would start crying, literally crying and shaking. Here I am, a doctor, crying and shaking on the other end of the line. I would put down the phone. I would get myself out of it. I would make sure to make that damn phone call. But it would sometimes take me an hour to get over it, to build up the courage again to call. Okay, so when I talk about fear, I need to also say, I have not had fear for, I don't know, the last 17 years, because it's not a reality for an infinite being. It's not a reality for us as beings. And some people say, yes, but you need fear. So you need fear to guide you so you don't hurt yourself. No, you don't. You need awareness to guide you. Fear does nothing except destroy. Okay, there is nothing valuable about fear, period. Because you can accomplish everything that fear gives you from awareness, from choice, and awareness and choice don't shut down your world like fear does. So we don't have to live with fear. It's something that we bought that we have to live with, and something that nobody has ever told us how to change. Because let's face it, nobody else is talking about implants or how to clear them, or distractor implants or how to clear them, which is why I say access is one of the weirdest things you will ever do. So anyway, back to the conversation. So fear is either a distractor implant, it's excitement that you misidentified and misapplied, or it's somebody else's. And so when we're little kids, we look at how mom deals with money. We look at how mom deals with friends. We look at how mom deals with life. And a lot of us had parents who were afraid of one thing or another. And so what happens is we buy that point of view as ours. We kind of are like, oh, that's how you do it. Okay, I'll do it that way. You know, it's like taking a computer program going, oh, I'll install that program. Okay, now I do it just like daddy does and mommy does. In fact, I do it just like mommy and daddy do, you know? And so when the situation comes up that would have sparked quote unquote fear for mom or fear for dad, guess what you do? This is how oh my God, I'm so afraid. Why? Because this is how we respond. And so part of what access gives you with this clearing statement is you can go, okay, so everywhere I bought, all of this is mine, destroy and uncreate it, POC and pod, or the whole long clearing statement if you want to. It's truly phenomenal. Like I see access as one of the biggest personal development upgrade to come along since personal development has existed. And you see it in the smiles of people. And but the thing that I don't know if anybody is ever truly able to convey is how very much the quality of your life changes. When you no longer feel like there's so many things in your life you would like to change, but you can't. When you start to have the sense of, wow, I'd like to change this. Okay, I'm going to work on changing it now. And then you see it start to change. God, there's nothing more exciting for somebody that's a seeker who's wanted to change things and know it should be possible their whole lives and have been told that you can't, or tried to do it and people won't let you, or people give you these ideas of what's supposed to work. Like when I was in metaphysics and I wanted to change my money situation, this lady said to me, you must take the purple light of Saint Germain, swirl it through the earth and through your feet and through and up through your root chakra and up through your base and up through your heart center, and expand your heart with purple light, and then through your throat so you can speak your desires, and then out to the crowd. And I was like, that's gonna change my money situation? Now, this lady had no money. Never listen to somebody who has less than you of what you desire, okay? And here's where I was at the time, okay? This was a few years before Access. I was so willing to do whatever it took that my question to her when she said this would change my money situation was, how many times? And so I have this personal thing where I get really frustrated with people giving other people things that will not work and don't work. And it's like, and so for us, the tools that we share in Access work on 85% of the people that use it at least. Otherwise, we don't make it part of Access.
Thank you for the explanation, because it's really good. And it was something that I was looking for. And thank you very much.
Oh, cool. I'm so glad.
I will have a pleasure. And what is missing?
Well, I think there's so many things missing. It's so interesting because we seem to have this collective point of view, or a lot of people seem to have this point of view that I mean, just let's look at just what church tells us. Church tells us that if we're really enjoying our lives here, then we're somehow bad people, and our job is to suffer here so we can go to heaven. And I'm like, oh, I disagree. I think the purpose of life is to have fun and have as much pleasure as you can. But we also have this, we're also taught this lie that if you actually live your life from what makes you happy, then you're going to be abusive and unkind to other people. or you're going to be selfish. And that there is no bigger lie that exists. What I found is when you actually start having a sense of enjoying your life, you become more of a contribution to other people. Those arrogant, selfish people are not people who are truly having the pleasure of being alive. They're people who are insecure. They're tiny chihuahuas, you know, and they're trying to act like big old dragons. They're not. So when we truly get a sense of us and truly start living our life from what makes us happy, we get happier. We spread the happiness to our families, to our friends, to everybody who comes into our life. And so we've created lives that are we've created lives that somehow we must solve all the problems. We have either one of two points of view. We must suffer and suffer and suffer so we can get to heaven someday. Or if you don't have that point of view, we have this idea that we must solve all of our problems before we can be happy for a moment, before we create more problems, as though our greatest gift to the world is solving problems. And so this whole idea is flawed, and it's based on lies. And when I say lies, see, a lie is anything that's not actually true well, let's put it this way. A lie is anything that's not true for you. And then fundamentally, we seem to have these weird universal lies that go against what the universe shows us is actually going on for it. And we're part of the universe, by the way. A lot of people go, oh, the universe out there, I'm asking for the universe. I'm like, you're part of the universe. Get it, like let it contribute. And I also have this other point of view that I probably shouldn't share, and I'll probably get in lots of trouble for, but why not? My point of view is, okay, we have this idea of heaven. And if we look at it, though, from the current religious models, who is it that's going to heaven? It's going to be fundamentalist Christians, fundamentalist Muslims, fundamentalist Jews, basically the fundamentalists of the world that think they're right and everybody else is wrong. Is that really where you want to go when you die? I don't think so. I don't think so.
Me neither. I don't want this. And the funny thing is that my father, his father was Jewish, my grandmother was Protestant, and my mother was Catholic. And right now, here I am.
I love that.
Yes.
And my personal point of view is, who cares what religion you are? Like, if that works for you and is making you a kinder person, if that gives you something that allows you to tap into what's actually true for you, and it's true for you, and you're not using it to abuse other people and invalidate them, that's awesome. Like, that's the way it should be. So when I tell my little joke, it's more like I do that to try to bust people out of this idea, because it's like this idea of suffering now to create something greater in the future. It's insane. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's like the people who spend their lives working, hoping that they spend their lives being workaholics, knowing that when I retire, I can finally have fun. Except they retire and then they're too unhealthy to do anything, and then they die after a couple of years. It's like, no, we have to enjoy this 10 seconds. We have 10 seconds to live the rest of our lives. What are we going to choose in this 10 seconds?
And this is beautiful. And where can we find you?
Oh, online, you mean? So many places. Yeah, you can go to my website, which is drdainheer.com. And there's a lot of the stuff. And the only reason I send you there is because the other website that is awesome is accessconsciousness.com. There's just so much there, because this is such a big body of work with thousands of facilitators in 176 countries, that people go to the website, they're like, I know it says start here, but I'm not exactly sure where to go because we have so much. And then also to get bars, there's bars.accessconsciousness.com. And I have so many free things online. I mean, I've got over 300 YouTube videos that have these different tools, different ways of looking at things that are my gift to people. We've got online video series that are free also. And then there's some other stuff you can do online that you pay for. And then there's classes, and we have books. I mean, consciousness is such a big world, and you can apply it to anything. And from my sense, there's this space of being alive that we have available, that it's like you got when you got your bars run, you know, and the tapping into that. And the thing is, we can't hold on to it. A lot of us go, but I want to stay this way forever. I'm like, I know, but you're like a shark. If you, in about 3 days, you're going to be used to that, and then you're going to need to expand it even more. Well, how do you do that? By asking these questions, by, you know, poc and potting the limitations that come up. And there's this great question that I've been giving people to ask that I would love everybody to have, which is, what is, and you can use it on anything, about anything, what is possible for me that I don't think is possible, that if I allowed the possibilities would actualize a different reality? So one more time, what is possible for you that you don't think is possible, that if you allowed the possibilities would actualize a different reality? And everything that doesn't allow that, right and wrong, good and bad, pod and poc, all nine shorts, boys and beyond. This world we live in it's such a beautiful planet. There truly are so many beautiful people on it. We all know there are a lot of assholes too, but why let them ruin our beauty? Why let them ruin what we would like to create? Why would let them ruin our joy and our sense of communion and connection with each other? And if they don't want it, that's fine, but what if they didn't get to run the place anymore? What if the kind, gentle statesmen and the people who truly care about others and the planet, what if they could step up now and have the capacity to bring things in another direction? And also, what if you're one of those people? What if it's not just about the people in political office and in high places in the world? What if it's about all of us being that energy, being that awareness of future, being that awareness of possibility? What if that's what is actually required now? And what if that's what we're being invited to be?
That is beautiful. And I'm really thankful for all these questions, because most of the time what we do is we do affirmations, we do different things, but we never ask. And it's really different when we start to ask, you know?
Truly.
It's really, really different.
Truly my pleasure. And when you said it's really different, and I would say that's because questions actually work. Questions actually have the effect that we've been trying to get with these other things. And somewhere we know it because we know. And I would say that's because questions actually work. Questions actually have the effect that we've been trying to get with these other things. And somewhere we know it because we know.
We're running out of time, but I would like that you talk a little bit about what is The Return of the Gentleman, your last book, The Return of the Gentleman. What is it about?
It's in about 30 seconds. It's what it is. It's a conversation that is aimed at men, but not exclusive of women, because the humanoid men, I call it humanoids, like the seekers of the world. These men, the men that don't fit into the alpha male stereotype, you know, the men that are not the macho men of the world, they tend to be kind, caring, sensitive, aware, and really potent, but they've never had anybody having a conversation with them about actually getting to be everything that they are and recognize they don't have to be a doormat. Their job is not to make up for the damage that mean, unkind men have done to women, because they're equally as outraged at the things that mean men do to women and mean women do to men and mean people do to people, period. And so what this is about is having a conversation that allows them to, by reading the book, change how they're showing up so that they can actually be the men that they are. And this conversation is also, I highly recommend women read the book, because what happens is there are a lot of resources for women and ladies out there about getting in touch with what's true for them, claiming their power, all these sorts of things. But there are almost none for these type of men that I'm talking about that actually allow them to embrace everything they are. And in reading the conversation, like, let me tell you what I've gotten as feedback from the online stuff that I put out on Return of the Gentleman, and also the book, is I'll have men tell me, thank you so much. I thought I was wrong my whole life for being who I am. Had all kinds of people, because I'm so sensitive, they thought I was gay, but I like women. And I realize it's okay to be that sensitive, that it's actually a power. I realize it's okay to like women and desire sex with women, and I'm not wrong. And I can still fight for women's rights, because those have been separated. Like if you were attracted to women and want to have sex, and you even offered to have sex, then you're somehow bad and wrong. Except women are now out there going, Jesus, he won't even touch me. He won't even approach me, because of this whole Me Too thing and him not wanting to overstep some boundary that he doesn't even know exists. And I'm like, exactly. And so the women that have read the book and looked at the online things that I have available have said, I am so grateful. Two things. They said, number one, I now realize what men have been going through. And I thought I was the only one who was struggling with all this stuff. And I thought men had it easy because they were men. I realized they've been struggling as much or more than we have. And so my relationship and I have gotten so much greater. We've come together and we're doing this thing together now and changing it for both of us. And then the other thing is, ladies send in these emails saying, thank you so much. I have been married for 8 years. And I feel like after my husband read your book, I feel like I have the man back that I married and fell in love with. I don't know where he went or why, but he's back after reading this book. And I am so grateful. And we have gentlemen around, we have these group of 4 gentlemen that are actually facilitating classes about this also, in addition to me. And it's like, it's so wonderful to have a different voice for men that's not exclusive of women, that's not about dominance over women, that's about men getting to be everything they are, that allows us to uplift everyone around us, male and female, and young and old. And that's really what the conversation is about. Oh yeah, and liking yourself too.
Yes, this is very important. And you know, most if I come from South America, you know how is that?
Yes.
So, I really appreciate that you have done this for them and for us.
Thank you very much.
It was amazing, and thank you very much for being part of Access Consciousness. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for the space to go to all kinds of weird places during this talk. I'm really grateful.
Me too. Thank you. And do you have a final message? I know you have talked a lot, but maybe you have another message.
I think for me, I would just like everybody to recognize that them truly being them is the gift, the change, and the possibility this world requires. And it's not nearly as difficult as we're told it is, not nearly as difficult as you think. And also you choosing to be that, which starts to embrace what's true for you and what's joyful for you, will start to acknowledge that other people can choose what's true for them. We'll start to create a space where they can choose what's joyful for them. And let us be the voice, and let us be the energy, and let us be the request that creates a sustainable living earth that includes all of us for our unforeseeable future. You know, what would it be like if we asked to create a sustainable living earth for the next 10,000 years and recognize we truly do have the capacity to create a future? And from my point of view, the thing that's going to change it is us getting more conscious. Yes, all the things that we have as, you know, the things where we recognize pollution and war and all this sort of stuff, all of that can be changed from consciousness. When you function from consciousness, war can't exist, terrorism can't exist, slavery can't exist, unkindness can't exist, and whatever does exist is not judged. So there's no reason for it to maintain its fight against. So it's not about access consciousness. That's one way to get to consciousness, but it's about us actually getting out of judgment of anyone or anything and allowing the possibilities to flow into our lives and recognize it's not an airy-fairy concept and it's not impossible. It's a very practical concept, a very practical way of living your life that actually works. And at the same time, it's absolutely possible starting now. So thank you.
I am in. You were talking, I have goosebumps. Thank
So,
you so
my
much.
dear.
It was my pleasure to have you here.